Testing, testing. Okay, that seems to be functioning. Let's turn my desktop audio down a bit. Okay. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. That looks good. Let's turn down my desktop audio so we're not getting a ton of feedback. There we go. Okay, looks good. One thing, I don't think I actually set this to live. Or I don't think I set the live stream to public. So let's see what's going on with all that. Let's see what's going on with all that. Looks public. It's hard for me to tell though. Okay, yeah, now that looks solid. I'd rather not chat on there with my alt account, so go ahead and just do the same thing we always do. Okay. It has been a bit since I have streamed. So it is going to take me a second to get everything back into my brain. Start. Let's go ahead and get all of these out of the way. And we'll just move you over one. There we go. All right. So, also, I don't think I tested that. Ah. I need to update the URL. There. And we are reconnected. Boot. And in a second now, that should either go through or we might need to do one more. There's the test message. There that is. There we go. We'll just remove the old messages. Would be great if it could just like automatically detect the stream URL, but I don't know how I'd set that up at the moment anyway. Okay, so finally, let's actually talk about what I would like to work on. So, we kind of got to the point where I wanted to integrate the dungeon crawler. So I pretty much just copied over the dungeon crawler code from the separate project that we worked on, and I realized that while I might be able to make it work, it really should be in a class format. So I really need to rework the dungeon crawler so that everything is in a class. I also kind of got sidetracked, so that's why there hasn't been like a stream in like a month. I messed with some other projects that were interesting to me. But I'm done with that now and try to work on this. Also, I'm going to try to make it in TypeScript since it's a bit more strictly typed. And I'm also going to try to use Zod. I'm not sure on that though. I haven't used TypeScript much. I haven't used Zod, I think, at all, but I've used similar stuff in the past. So it will be a bit of a journey. There will be some Googling. And I will try to make it so that it's readable, kind of self-documenting. Hopefully the strictly types can kind of make that easier. Anyways, everything's the way it's supposed to be. Let me see if I can up my screen brightness just a bit. There we go. Let me verify my audio is going through. It looks like it's going through fine. It looks like it's going through projects that were interesting to me. But I'm done with that now. I'm trying to work on this. Okay. Yeah, no, it looks like my audio is going through fine. Okay. This is gonna be a thing. Let's see. Let me look at my errors real quick. Wish there was a way to set the zoom more specifically. And I can't really. Right about there is good. It has been a while since I've touched this. Jeezums. What does the message router do? I mean, I've got a rough idea of what it does. I'm trying to see if any of this actually ties into the dungeon crawler already. And router. Okay, that's what I thought. This isn't tying into the dungeon crawler itself. It's just routing dungeon crawler commands to the dungeon crawler command handler. Let's see. That all makes sense. Okay, that makes some sense. What about movement, attacks, stuff like that? How is it being dispatched from command routing to the actual dungeon crawler? I can see how we're handling joining of teams and such. Here's the vote. Okay. So the voting's being handled here. So teams is basically every team that exists for a certain dungeon crawler instance. Each individual team has a ballot box assigned to it. That ballot box is essentially keeping track of the votes for each thingamadoob. Yeah. The ballot box is made up of multiple ballot options. Each ballot option is a particular option that they could be voting for. None of this tells me how we're sending the data from the team, the ballot box, to the dungeon crawler. Which kind of puts me in... It makes me question whether I've implemented that at all. From what I'm seeing here, it doesn't look like it. I also have to question what it would look like. Because my thought process is we'd have it on some kind of a timer. People get 60 seconds or so to vote on the action they want to take, and then that action happens. We close the vote for that, and we move on. Speaking of that, did we ever implement some kind of code/ID kind of thing that people have to input for each vote? I think we did. That's what this auth is about, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so the idea is they put in the auth command along with whatever the auth string is, and then they can do whatever. What that doesn't stop, though, is users inputting, like they could vote, but because of the latency of the stream, their vote might be registered for the next vote. So they might be voting to move left, but in this vote that they're seeing on screen, but it might get registered as the next vote. I don't think that'll be a huge issue, honestly, because I think there's going to be some delay between votes for a variety of reasons. My kind of thought process is people submit their votes. After the timer closes out, then there's some small sprites / animation / just text happening on screen that narrates what's going on and kind of shows what's going on. And that'll happen for 15 seconds. And during that 15-second period where the actions are actually taking place, the votes will just be shut down. No votes will be allowed during that time. And then it'll reopen votes for the next action. And I think that'll kind of make up for any latency. So we'll see. Anyways, given I need to have access to the teams, or I really just need to have access to the ballot boxes / the wherever I'm actually handling the loop for the votes and whatnot. I need to have access to this class. Alternatively, maybe this class needs to have access to the dungeon crawler instance. That could also work. Regardless, I think the next practical action remains the same. So, close to the right. I think what we need to do is create a new folder here. Then we start moving everything from here into here. And we work on the whole Zod and TypeScript. Let me see if I can open a new instance of VS Code and open this folder. Or not. Okay. Home, Dr. Vixel Social. There we go. Alrighty, and then we just kind of start from A to Z. Or .ts. Oh boy. Let me see if I can show you guys what I'm looking at. So the update on Dungeon just kind of took in player actions, and then it would actually handle those player actions, handle the NPC and such actions, etc. How do I start this? I guess the best place to start would be to define these. I can't imagine that this has to change all that much. So yeah. These are kind of the backbone of the whole thing, so. Just copy and paste those over and we'll kind of figure it out from there. Doesn't look like it's angry about this, but that kind of scares me. We just kind of Google TypeScript object. So I guess this is how you're supposed to define it, if you actually want the type safety. I'm assuming this is just compile time, and Zod would be the runtime safety for this kind of stuff. course, I'm sure there's some kind of, I think there's like an object.freeze. So this would be something like, oh, left string, right string, up string, and down string. Is this practical? Like, why would I need to define this when I can just say this? What's the benefit of defining each of those? Because my understanding of object.freeze is takes in an object and then that object cannot be mutated without causing an error. Yeah, just looking at the docs here. Frozen object can no longer be changed. New properties can't be added, existing properties cannot be removed. Can existing properties be changed? Non-writable, non-configurable. I'm going to assume not. So I'm kind of questioning why I would want to define the exact I don't see the benefit of doing this, not meaningfully. But I will anyway. One thing I should test is the object.freeze. So let me go ahead and bring up a JS compiler real quick. And obviously, it absolutely must be in the brightest mode possible. There we are. My one concern is that this won't work, but if I used the actual variable declaration, it would. So, let's see. Run. Yeah, it looks fine. Let's give that a run. I'm surprised this isn't giving an error. That's what I was expecting, is error if I tried to change anything. No error, just won't do it. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Regardless, it didn't add or change anything in the object, which was what the goal was, so I'm happy with it. What I'm not so happy with is this type definition. It's just a lot of information in one place. It feels messy. Is there a better... My instinct is telling me that there is a better way to handle this, and I just don't know what it is. But I think it's worth at least trying to look up. Ah, interface. Gotcha. This is the way to handle it. Of course, then you're separating the definition a little bit. But it does seem like the better way to handle it. See, I could say interface or I could say schema. But I feel like interfaces... They said layout in the Stack Overflow example. For the time being, I'm just going to call it an interface. Or I could use my own kind of thing. I think it's better just to be clear about it. Alright. And I do like this better. I mean, I think ideally this would be in its own file, and then we'd import. But having them right next to each other is really nice. As long as it's at this scale, it should be fine. Like, my instinct is like I could create a schema folder specifically for the dungeon crawler folder. So create a schema folder within that, and then I could hold all the interfaces in that schema folder and import from that. But if I do that, every single change that I make here, I will have to go to the corresponding schema folder file and change that as well. Alternatively, I could just keep it in here directly and it's next to the thing. So if I make a change here, I can just immediately edit this. The benefits of having it in like a schema folder though is I can see the definitions for everything in one place. For now, I'm going to do this. If it gets to a point where I really want to make a schema folder or change my approach, I will change it then. There we go. Okay, let's... Can I do this to a frozen object? Not sure. I can always find out. I'm not gonna mess with it right now. Let's see. Can I do that? Not sure. I wonder if there's a way to just say property should always be a number in this object. I mean, there is this. I'm not really wanting it to be any. I'm wanting it to be a key that is a string, and then it's always a number or it's always a string, etc. But yeah, no, I would tend to agree with this guy's perspective that if it's any key to any value, then the type system isn't doing anything. But what about the case where it's just key to string, key to number? Because that's what a lot of these types are, is it's always going to be value to value. So looking at that, we can always say interface key string. And interface of course we can say object with string values with only string values, object with only number values, key string to string, and key string to number. Does it have integer? Int. What is a number in TypeScript? Like, what I'm concerned about is whole numbers versus decimal numbers. Is there a way for me to define that I only want whole numbers here? Okay, so generally, no. At least based on what I'm seeing. It's not that big of a deal to me. I'm not going to worry about it. There's probably a way to do it. And there's almost certainly a way you could do it manually. But TypeScript interfaces in and of themselves does not just have something as simple as int. So then with that, we should be able to say object with only string values. Ah, this one's more difficult. And this is where we lose the benefit of this. I see. So I could always just say this, but what if that's not always true? I'm not referencing a pure definition of this anymore. It's more work to add more types. But it's a better approach. Of course, that doesn't mean I have to define everything in each one of these types. Okay. Because I can still do this, I think. Now I'm just kind of scrolling through the documentation. this? What is this? You have to define the same thing twice, which means anytime you make a change to person, you have to change it in multiple locations. I don't think this is what I'm looking for. What's the difference between a type and an interface? So this extends is probably exactly what I'm looking for. Okay. And what's the difference between extends and implements? So I understand type and interface are essentially the same thing. They have different syntax, but functionally they do the same thing, from what I can tell. What I don't understand is the difference between extends and implements. So extends basically says we need everything from this interface. Also, why is this class? Why is this not interface? Don't understand that. Regardless, extends means we're creating an interface, or we're creating a class, in this case, that requires all of these things. Implements means it can have these things, or it might not. That's what I'm getting out of this. I don't know. Okay, moving on. I can't stare at it for the next 3 hours. I think I can do this. Extends object with only string values. I'm assuming that we need some kind of special thing to run TypeScript files. Okay, I am going to throw the first Stack Overflow solution I see at it and see what happens. I may regret this, but this is kind of just the way it goes. Maybe. What I don't like is the idea. Because right now I'm mixing and matching with TypeScript and JavaScript, and I don't know how that's going to play. It might play terribly. Let's see what this is saying. I'm just kind of looking through this right here. All right, let's see what happens. No inputs, that makes sense. We look at this. And no. Driving me a little nuts at this point. Just want to run this one thing. Please. Ugh. Okay. Well, this is what I get for trying to mess with TypeScript. Let's see. npx tsc test.ts. -- ignore config. Okay. Doesn't look like there's any errors immediately, but let's make sure. There should be errors now. Okay. Looks good. All right, that's verified. Moving on. I feel comfortable deleting this. And I'll go ahead and bookmark this page. Save. And this one would be this looks good, but what if I did this? Okay, so looks good. I mean, I could just freeze these, but is there a good reason to do so? I guess there is. And then boom. Then, just because I like semicolons, Right, that gets all the types defined. I don't know if this is clean TypeScript or not. Kind of just making this up as I go. Not used to working with TypeScript. This feels like roughly what you should be doing. I don't know. I guess we'll see. It'll bite me later if I've done something terribly. But I've tried to define everything within reason. Okay. Moving on, let me take a look at this and kind of determine what's next. This seems like a good next step. The entity constructors. Jeezums. Yeah, I think the entity constructors are probably a good next step, so we'll take a look at that. Of course, I did kind of say I was thinking about using Zod, so should take a look at that. I see what it does. I will keep it in mind. I'm not sure. The big thing that I'm interested in doing is kind of self-documenting, where their inputs and outputs are all clearly defined with the functions. Don't know if I need Zod to do that. I think TypeScript does that in and of itself, although we haven't really messed with TypeScript with functions as of yet. We're about to do that. And then I've kind of seen some examples of libraries or such stuff that can take in like TypeScript code and then can convert it into like W3 schools type documentation for that code. And I'm very interested in something like that. That'd be really cool. I think it would be more readable than just plain VS Code scrolling through stuff. So, I'm not sure though. Anyways, one thing at a time. Let's take a look at entity constructors. Okay. And then, how does TypeScript work with functions? Gotcha. So we're probably going to be reusing this a lot. Actually, we'll delete this from trash. Of course, I could instead do this and this. Get rid of this entirely. Then we go to entity constructors and we import. Import and taking a look at this again real quick. Function. Does it have to be function? Can I just do this? Now what if I did this instead? Okay. Now, what if I did this? Okay. And then what if I did this? All right, looks good. Moving on. Good position. What are you returning? And then we should just be able to copy over the old stuff. Looks good. Okay. Next up is the player. I'll kind of just... Actually, let's see if I can get this open to the side so you guys can see it. Pretty sure there's a way to do it. There we go. And then we'll kind of just scroll that on down. Can I specify that it is a specific thing? Like I've been specifying the type as in number or string, but can I say it has to be this exact value of string or this exact value of number? I feel like you can, I just don't know how to off the top of my head. Is there no way to... Entity.player would be this. Is there no way to tell this that... I don't understand. So I can do that, but I can't do this? That's dumb. Maybe I'm missing something. don't think it's possible. At least it doesn't seem trivially possible. But maybe there's a trick, I don't know. But regardless, I'm not messing with it further. Oh, Boolean. Boolean. Number. Pause should be a position. Okay. A lot of this should be able to be reduced. This is strange. How do you handle this? Number. Like that? Okay. And we are returning a player interface. Or we're returning a player, but... it's good. And if I put position interface in here, we should get an error. It should hate us a lot. Cool. What happens if I remove something? Okay. Just making sure. Anyways, we now have the player defined. Chest. That one's trivial. Interface. It's kind of why I really wanted to be able to specify the exact thing, but it is what it is. Probably extensions I could do to make this more trivial. Because HP and AP is being used a lot. So anything that is combat compatible has those. Also, do we need these? It looks like we don't even need those. We don't need these. My bad on that. probably use these moving forward, just semicolons at the end, for consistency and as separators. Anyways, moving on. Ain't no reason to be typing all that out. That should be erroring. Why isn't it? Ah, that's why. Is there anything else I've missed? No, it doesn't look like it. Okay, moving on. New dungeon's gonna take a minute. Let's start with the minotaur. Interface, minotaur, interface. I have a feeling we're going to need a lot of these interfaces in other locations, which is going to kind of push me to do the whole schema folder. It's not strictly necessary now, but it is going to be. Minotaur has a pause, which should be position interface. There we go. That looks good. Okay, let's figure out what this dungeon is actually returning. Gotcha. Okay, so rooms is just a 2D array that can have any variety of entities in it. Well, not quite any variety of entities in it, but... Alright, let's trivialize this for now. Then we might specify the exact types of entities that are allowed in it. For the time being, though, we'll just say rooms is a maybe. I've never had to specify an array, so take a look. So we could say something along the lines of that. And then the players, we should have a player interface. Yes, we do. Okay, there we are. And then dungeon and info. It's a Boolean, and the end message is a string. Yeah. This is a little bit of a cheeky way to handle it. Ideally, we'd specify the things that can be in there. I think we can do like this. Let me just try and see. So type can be player, chest, mimic, minotaur. And moving on. What we don't have in this entity constructor, we haven't set up the init add to room yet. So that's going to have to be something that we do in the future. Right now, that is going to be commented out. We also don't have get random room position, but we'll get to that. Get 2D array. That shouldn't be too difficult. Get random room position shouldn't be too difficult either. Okay. We'll go ahead and get those two set up. First, let's get... This is a number, and it returns a dungeon interface. We have a myriad of minor issues that we need to fix, but a thing at a time. Start with, I want this. Okay, what is happening here? Why are you so angry? Do we have an array within an array within an array? That's what it's looking like. No, it's... I don't understand. I don't think this is helpful. Alright, that ought to do it. That was a bit more intensive than I thought it would be. Regardless, moving on. That's one of the helpers that we desperately needed. Get random room position was the other one. Let's see. Random int. Seems like the big thing we're missing. And we should be returning a number. Ideally a number between min and max inclusive, but it's whatever. Let's see. How do we get dungeon size beforehand? We imported it from this. Okay. We're not going to be able to import it this time, because that is a value that will need to be a class, which means dungeon size will need to be passed in. Size should be a number. Types is something we can import. Entity constructors is something we can import. Entity constructors, how did we handle that beforehand? Get around the rest in time. Now we'll just do that, and then back to this. Import entity constructors. Okay. Okay. Get random room position. Let's see. Give you a little bit more space. Quadrant. Do we have a type defined for quadrant? Yes, we do. And it is a string. there we go. Dungeon size is a number that must be passed in. Quadrant is a string or null. Defaults to null. And then what are we returning? Position. And position, yeah. This is where we need those. That's not what I'm looking for. This. This is where we're needing these. Export. I feel like there's a better way to organize this, but I just don't know off the top of my head. I could throw it all into a schema folder. Alternatively, I could keep it like this. But a schema folder would probably be a better way to organize it. By far, honestly. Not going to mess with it right now, but that is a strong future consideration. Anyways. This is completely unnecessary. We've defined the input, we've defined the output, and it looks like there's no errors. So, moving on. We wanted get 2D array and get random position, and we have both. This needs the dungeon size. Fortunately, we have it right here, so. There we are. Why can't we? You exist. All right. I don't think there's any errors here. So that's the new dungeon handled. Well, not handled. You still have to have the init add to room. But if I look at helpers, the reason I'm kind of avoiding that right now is I think it requires a lot of other stuff. Or maybe not. Never mind. That is trivial. We'll go ahead and just implement it now. The entity should just be a dungeon entity. Pause should just be a position interface, and rooms there. Okay. Let's see. Where is the vector 2 at? I know it exists somewhere. Alright. But I'm dumb. This is in the new dungeon, so yeah, that's right. That handles that. That being said, if we're adding noise to the room, it should be angry. The room shouldn't work. I don't know. I don't know. My instinct is that I should be getting an error. Oh well. I am not, and I am not going to complain about that for now. I might have just hit a limit of what TypeScript can actually keep track of. Alternatively, this might be doing a lot of heavy lifting. What if I do that? Let's see. If I did this, then we have no errors. But we should. We're pushing an entity. What even? And the noise shouldn't count as an entity. It shouldn't be allowing me to pass that in. Why is it allowing me to pass this in? Why is it allowing me to pass that in? It shouldn't be allowing me to. It must match one of the interfaces. That's my only thought process, is that noise matches one of the existing interfaces. Type level. No, it shouldn't match any of the existing interfaces. It shouldn't, not from what I can tell. Why aren't you erroring? Well, I don't know why. It should be. But it isn't. Regardless, we will just kind of glaze over that for the time being. I'll add it in there because it's supposed to be there. And I will ignore the fact that TypeScript is not doing its job very well. Unless Void is just doing some craziness. Anyways. That is... There's no errors in this. This is returning the thing it's supposed to be returning. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And you can be... there we go. Moving on. Next entity, constructor, stat mod, and player actions. right? And player actions. Do we have a player action type yet? We should, actually. Yep, we do. Although it's... every action is a string, so I could just simplify to that. Though that's kind of a cheeky way to handle it, and I don't like it. This is not the ideal way to handle this. Well, I'm not sure. It might be the ideal way to handle this. But the issue I have with it is that I'm now manually typing it out twice, which means if I change it in one place, I have to change it in two places or more. There's no single source of truth, which makes me sad. But I've tried to work with TypeScript with variables, and it just don't like it. Like here I can do, if I try to do it, player action dot move dot up. It's just like, no, you're not allowed to do that. So. Given that, this is the next best thing I can think to do. So now if we go here, Okay, entity constructors and types are done. And we didn't use this here, so that can disappear. Let me go ahead and clean this up a little bit. It's good. So types and entity constructors are done. Let's see. Got to start on helpers. Helpers is probably the next place to go, honestly. Let me take a look at how long I've been streaming for. About 2.5 hours. See if I can get a little bit more time in. Let's see. We've got action handler, data, entity constructors, helpers, index, init dungeon, and types. We've already handled types and entity constructors. Data is where I was actually holding on to the dungeon and the various information, but that really needs to be a class. Action handler is a big old thing that's going to require pretty much everything to be built before it. Or perhaps not. Looks like we did a lot of stuff to just handle it in here. No, we don't have the move. Or the get minotaur move direction, so yeah, no, helpers has to be done before action handler. I'm not sure if data needs to be done before helpers or if it can be done after. Index pretty much needs done at the very end. Init dungeon. What does that actually do? I didn't even see it, honestly. Maybe it was handled in data? Yes, here it is. So we create the dungeon, we initialize it by putting stuff in it. Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, init dungeon will definitely need to be done before For index, data will need to be done. Honestly, data could be done before helpers or after helpers. We can probably work on it now, though. Anyways, I'm going to pause the stream for a bit. Take a minute. I will be back. Alrighty, I am back. I could work on the data class immediately, but I'm kind of curious about the W3 schools style of documentation for TypeScript. So I'm going to look up some stuff regarding that. I think this is what I've been learning about TypeDoc. See, I don't have this kind of comment above my functions. I just have this. I don't know if that's sufficient or if it really needs these. I'm not looking for TypeDoc example, I'm looking for this. Okay, here we are. Let's see. So, TypeDoc is not compatible with 7.02. We'll have to do 6 point something. I feel like there's a way to define the exact version here. I just don't know how off the top of my head. Okay, there we go. Moving on. Builds docs using package.json, which I have probably hidden away somewhere. Package.json exports or main. I don't see an exports or a main. So we'll provide it manually. Can I just tell you to do entity constructors? That would be great. npx type doc entity constructors.ts. Or it might need to be more specific than that, my bad. Features slash dungeon crawler v2 slash entity constructors.ts. I'm unsure why you're being angry at me right now. Okay. See what that looks like. Why can't I, like, click these and have them take me to chest interface or dungeon interface or whatever? Oh. Types should have a lot more interfaces. I don't know. I'll have to toy with this more. Okay, finally, we got a function at the very least. I can see how this could be really awesome, but I'm very disappointed with what's been generated here, honestly. This feels very incomplete. I mean, just to start, go ahead and close that out. Where is, I don't know, let's start with direction interface. Where's that? I don't see it in here anywhere. Direction interface, where is object with only string or object with only number values? Why is it only these two things? I don't know. It's got all four files: types, index, helpers, entity constructors. Is it... Okay. It might only be getting the interfaces and such that are exported. Let's go ahead and test that theory. Position vector2 dungeon in entity constructors. Actually, the easier way to test that theory is to just do this. Boom. Boom. Okay. Can I refresh? Direction interface, yeah. It's only getting the ones that are exported. That's interesting and acceptable, especially with the fact that I'm planning on kind of moving out the interfaces and whatnot into a schema folder. So that's okay. So we've got interface type. What is the V? Go ahead and export const types. What does this represent? I know what I represents. I know what T represents. I don't know what this V represents. Variables. Interfaces, yeah, it represents variables. Okay. Why are you just documenting everything that's exported? Variables and whatnot as well? All right, that makes sense. So interface types, variables, and functions. Okay. I'll have to work with that more in the future. Time being, I'm going to go ahead and just log this in the notes. Or, my bad. But I will have to go ahead and do the schema approach or start exporting literally all the interfaces. And I think it's probably better to do a schema folder approach. I think I'm probably going to call it for today. Started messing with TypeScript. Learned a lot with that. And I got TypeDoc, which is kind of cool. But just the basic setup, it needs to be more properly used, and I'm certainly not doing that right now. Next stream, we'll probably set up the schema folder. And start working down this list. Anyways, good stream overall.